Guru team, and welcome to my new series. I call it a series. It's really sort of a showcase, to be fair. This is Farming Simulator 22 from 2022, which is the update to Farming Simulator 19, which was 2019. And if you know anything about Farming Simulator, they used to release updates every 2 years. So there was 17, 19. I think it goes back to 13, 15, 17, 19. There was going to be 21, but something happened. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, that got delayed. So FS22 came out, Farming Simulator 2022. And it's been another 3 years, and Farming Simulator 25 is going to be coming out, which is hence why I've called the series 2022-25. Because it's really sort of a recap, a refresh, perhaps, for those of you that did have the game, played the game for a while, maybe shelved it, forgot about it, moved on, did other things like DayZ, etc., and you're thinking about getting back to it, and whether Farm Sim 25 will be for you, which I'm hoping to get when it comes out in currently mid-November. And there's no reason to suspect it won't be coming out in mid-November. So that's the point of this little, I guess, showcase. I'm not here to really play through the game in the sense of playing through the game, but I want to touch on some of the bits of the game and things that you can do the game, and we'll start a farm and we'll run through a farm and we'll try and do a few things, explore a few things, and cover a few of the topics and various other bits and pieces. So initially it might be a bit dry because I want to cover, there's a lot to cover at the front end, which I think is really important if you want to get into Farm Simulator. You can jump into it, but I wouldn't advise it. It's quite easy to get lost. It took me a while, and I played it, and I played Farm Sim 19 a lot, and it took me a while to get back to remembering how to do things. So hopefully this will remind you, if you have played it, what it's like. And if you haven't played it, you've never got it, you've now seen adverts for Farm Sim 25, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure what that's all about on console, then by all means continue to watch. So we'll take it from there, and that's the reason behind this. So bit of a showcase, we'll touch on a lot of things, we'll go through a lot of things. Some of it will be a little bit how the game functions, how the interface functions, which is pretty important, and later on in the showcase we will get down to gameplay. Now I say later on, I mean later on episodes, because this first episode is likely to be a lot of talking and a lot of explanation and not a lot of actual farm stuff, but I can jump in and show you a previous farm that I'm working on. But we're gonna set up a farm. We're gonna run through mucking around with that. So when you get stuck into Farm Simulator 22, there's a whole load of stuff, which is the kind of usual stuff that you see. That your career is essentially, this is the game that you play. There's a multiplayer component. I don't play multiplayer, but I understand you can, which is great, and I understand even crossplay is enabled. So you could work with buddies to build a farm. So that sounds like fun. That's a good idea. I don't have people that could do that, although I do know of one, nudge nudge, but I don't know if he's interested. There's downloadable content, trophies, PlayStation Store options, and credits. This one here in particular is important. Now, Farm Sim has a very active modding community, and there are loads and loads of different kinds of mods. And you have all of these things. You have maps, you have a variety of different tractors, you've got trucks, harvesters, forage harvesters, and we'll go through what all these things do. If it all seems way too much for you, if you're a city kid, and I'm a city kid, I'll touch on what all of these things are for. You've got potatoes, beet, sugarcane, cotton, grapes, olives, forestry, loaders, telehandlers, skid lifts, forklifts, trailers, cultivators, augers, etc. These are all things that you use in-game, and you can use in-game. You got things like sheds and silos and things, and these are all where you get all the modded various bits and pieces. And up here you have packages and gameplay and things like that. I mean, if you just look at the farmhouses, look at the extent of the different kinds of assets that people have been building in here. It's got their names down there, Batoni, Lucas, and crossplay is enabled, and it's got, you know, a rating, which is the ratings given to it by other players, and so on. You can get tents if you want. You've got some very old European style farmhouses and things. You got a modern house. You can there's underground facilities. Look at this thing, big buildings, a house with a pool, Buchweiser farmhouses. You know, these are all European styles, mid-German, Bavarian. You've got 60 buildings in one pack. You know, so there's a whole load of stuff that people are doing and modding, and you can really, I mean, look at the bar on the right. We've barely even scratched the surface of what's in here, and this is just one mod pack. You can fundamentally change the maps that you get, right? That's what we're saying here, is you can mod things. There's bits that are critical for game, different kinds of tractors, and these are all different kinds of tractors that you can bring in. Most of this download stuff is free, by the way, so you don't have to pay for it. The only ones that you do have to pay for is things like this, where it says it's got an official banner and it says it's a pack. If you click on it, it says down there at the bottom, it says you have to buy that, and they're a few bucks, but I don't want to buy them. I honestly don't feel like I need to buy them. And this is an official Giant software release item and so on. So there's all of these things that you can actually download. You can play in game. You can drive them. They're fully functional. They have a variety of different characteristics, and they've got this strange, crazy thing here, the New Holland crawler, which is manufactured in 1986 apparently. You know, there's all these kind of crazy things that you can purchase in game, and you can play with in game. So you can set yourself up for whatever you want. And like I said, there's maps for everything, including all kinds of different maps. There's mods for everything, including all kinds of different maps. You know, so it shows you different kinds of maps and explains to you roughly what you've got. So you can see there in the middle picture is an explanation of what you can expect. And it probably doesn't make sense to you now, but it will after I show you the map that we're going to go and get started with later on. So yes, there's so much mods, so many things, so many bits and pieces you could. I mean, look at the scaler on the right. So there's just endless amounts of maps, all kinds of maps from all over. They're just taking a while to load in. There's a bunch of them, and you may have seen people play these before. You can go to Mars. I mean, seriously, you can go on. I don't know how that works. That would just be crazy. How are you going to do that on Mars? I have no idea. Anyway, there's a whole load of stuff, a whole raft of stuff. If you come down here, we've got a list of things that are installed. Now, these are installed into the game itself, and you'll see up there I'm using 25% of the total amount of storage that the game allows me to use from the mods. I'll go through those in a minute, but I could obviously stack it up, but these are the mods that I have in here. These are various updates, downloads. This is other available content, which is purchasable. Extra content, which I have unlocked, a hero suit for some reason, which I don't want. And this is some of the ways it's rated. This is the stuff that's rated the best by the players who download it. They say this is great, this is good. You give it, you rate it yourself, and then other people know it's good. If you rate it as bad because it doesn't work properly, there's issues, it collides, whatever, it's not a good mod, that's fine, people won't buy it. You've got the most downloaded, which doesn't always necessarily fit with the best, but it is there. This one, precision farming, we'll talk about that in a minute because it's a special one. But people download motorbikes that you can ride around in, utes, the road rage car, vans, things like that. A lot of this, that the tension belt sport is a very good idea for logs and logging. I will tell you that. The cars, less so. They're really just sort of glitzy stuff. Vans, you can actually carry things like eggs and cakes, various other things in vans, which we'll talk about, and utes can carry limited amounts of things on the back of them, and so on. You have things like brush cutters, which is to do with tidying up your farm, decorative objects and so on that you can add in, various bits and pieces to, like I say, alter the maps. You can put in wind turbines if you want. a whole bunch of various other bits and pieces that you can play with, which is all fine. These are the latest mods that have come out, not necessarily the ones that are best rated. You would obviously need to check the stars to see what people think. In general, they seem pretty good now, I think. And these are the ones that are quote-unquote recommended. I'm not really sure what that means, recommended, but obviously you've got fences and so on. I've used that before. It was tricky to use, to be fair, but I was dealing on a fairly tricky map, and it was, I think it was FS19, don't think it was FS22. No Man's Land, the map I've heard of, but I haven't played. Some of these other things, not sure I have played with, etc, etc. I think I've done Transport Pallets Pack. Not sure about anything else in particular, but yeah, so there is a load of mods. What I have done, and what you can do, thankfully, because there is a search function at the bottom, what I have done is, and this will search all mods, is I've gone with Giant. Now, the way I've looked at this is these are all mods that are, I guess, endorsed by Giant's software is probably the best way to say it. So it all has Giant software in it, as opposed to, for example, you go here and this is by ADub Modding, ABP Team, you know, and this is Black Sheep Modding, and this is Jan FS, and so on. So by searching it up with Giant, what I've done is really sort of, and that's just the tractors, so I need to go higher, sorry. I have kind of taken the opinion that these are, and correct me if I'm wrong, or, you know, bear with me if I'm wrong, endorsed Giant products, kind of speaking, and that they won't break the game per se, because some of the other mods are quite, they can be a bit OP, and they can change how you play the game, which is fine, and we'll talk about how you play the game later, but I've taken the point of view that I have been through and selected every Giant endorsed piece of gear, and this is all of them, and that was free, so non-purchasable. So I haven't downloaded that because you need to purchase that. So it's only the ones that says installed, and I've downloaded and installed them all. Okay, so that's how I've looked at it. So the only things that I'm rocking with on my games is quote unquote endorsed Giant software mods. So there you go. So if you're watching any of the stuff that I'm playing and you see a vehicle there and you go, I don't have that vehicle. Why don't I have the Homer Terror Fearless 3 vehicle? You go, well, because it's a downloadable product, but it is a Giant product, and I've downloaded it from Giant, or, you know, from the Mod Hub. So that's probably the first thing, and you really, it's up to you. You might want to jump in vanilla, but, you know, no mods whatsoever. But it can be a little bit interesting with no mods whatsoever, in that there's certainly some things that are very useful in that equipment, which won't break the game. It's just very useful. You still have to play the game. You still have to hire the equipment. You still have to buy the equipment. You still have to maintain the equipment. You still have to use the right tractor to tow the equipment, and we'll talk about, you know, how that plays in later. You know, you still need all of these things to work, to make the whole system work, and you need to be aware of that. So I don't see it as particularly problematic. So if it gets stuck in with career, I have a game saved that I have been working on, which is fine, but we're going to start with the new one. So how the new one works is you've got these sort of three, I guess you could call them difficulties. They've got them easy, medium, and hard, where, you know, you started as a new farmer, you own land and equipment, the economy is profitable, the game plays easy, right? So fine, whatever. You've got farm manager, which is the standard setting. You don't own anything, but you have substantial funds. You do start with substantial funds, you know, and the economy is fairly okay, and you can kind of carry on. And this is the one where you start with absolutely nothing, you know, and you got to figure out how to do it. Now, this kind of plays into really, how do you want to play the game? Just quick sip of tea. So I guess the beauty of a game like Farm Simulator is there isn't a right way or a wrong way to play the game. You have to make money, right? The game is about making money. But there's no goal per se other than don't go bust. And you'd have to be really bad to go bust. And even if you do go bust and you lose everything, which has never happened to me, you can always pick up a contract and do contract work and make money that way. So how you play the game is entirely up to you. In much the same way as perhaps something like one of the bigger city builders like City Skylines is. There are no external pressures. You are not being forced by anyone, attacked by anyone. No one is trying to outcompete your land or buy your land or take anything from you. There's no competition, there's no leaderboard, there's no winning and losing. There's simply playing the game and exploring the game and doing it however you want to do it. And you can muck around with bits and pieces and you can try different things and you can do whatever you like and experiment and all the rest of it. So that means that you've got freedom to do whatever you like or nothing, essentially. So some people play it very, very real life, very immersive, stay in first person, play the whole game in first person, which is, by the way, hard, and I mean effing difficult, because you don't see in a game with the same way that you see in real life. So things like steering a vehicle with a huge, great big trailer on it in first person in Farm Simulator down a country track can be darn difficult, So there's things about that which is not how I want to play it. But I understand that people do want that full immersion stuff, and they go all in, and that's the way they play it. And they, drive on the roads the way they should. They obey the laws. They indicate. They use indicator signals. They give way to traffic. They do all those kinds of bits and pieces, the way that they feel should be done, quote unquote, in real life, right? That's probably a very slim amount of people. Then there's those people who probably play it in the extent of they're trying to go all out. They're running around doing a bunch of stuff on their own farms, making their own farms, trying to make as much money as possible, and saving time and doing that, and not really doing much in terms of modding the map that they have, which is probably most people. And then there'll be other people who want to, change the face of the map, restructure it, build little places and villages and things, and sort of really customize their space and make it their space and a place that they can live in, and maybe have crossplay with friends and do that. And all of that's good, and that's all fine, and that's how you play the game. I would say, from my perspective, how I tend to play the game is probably more of from a management perspective. So I'm not too bothered about real hardcore verisimilitude, being exactly like real life. So I don't mind that. I don't mind breaking the law, driving the tractor across freeways and stopping traffic and all the rest of that kind of stuff, because I don't see that as game breaking. It's part of the game, so that's fine. I'm not trying to cheat the game. I just think that there's some things that just don't need to be bothered about. The game has functions that I use. It has camera functions and remote cameras and things which we'll have a look at. You can hire helpers that can do things that seem like it's probably not true to real life, and so on, which we'll cover, which is, again, I'm fine with that. It's part of the game. You still have to pay for it. You don't get away with cheating. It's not quote unquote a cheat, but it is different, and it means that the game is different. It's not like in real life kind of game, but it's about managing the game and managing the way the game is played and managing the farm and everything else. That's how I tend to come at it. So when I'm explaining things and doing things, I'm explaining it from that kind of farm management perspective. I'm not breaking any of the rules. I'm not using any illegal mods. I'm not using anything that changes the function of the game. I'm not taking out massive loans and money or anything like that. If I'm reliant on money, what I'm doing is saying, hey, you can do these things in the game, and it's a way to play the game. Take it or leave it. Decide how you want to do it. Maybe start off, give yourself a break, make it easy. Once you've got into the swing of things and you're confident with how things are going, you might want to back off some of the settings or change some of the settings and look at how you want to do it. From our perspective, we're going to start off with this showcase with Farm Manager. It's nice and it's in the middle. It also gives us a balance of money because I need to show you things. And if I have to start from scratch and do a whole load of cutting grass and trees to get money to start with, I'm going to bore you to tears, and myself probably. That's not how I want to do it. Not this time anyway. So we'll start with Farm Manager. And Farm Manager, you get this option to select the map. So this is the map that we're going to select. Now, once you select, you get into your mods. Now you'll see here I can actually let me just go back to that. I'll be right back. Right, back here again. Sorry about that. Pressed the wrong button. In almost all other cases, X is select, except on this screen when it's square. So I often press X here when I'm trying to select something and then end up going on to the next screen. So here you can choose the mods that you're going to select. You can say, I don't want that tractor. So I could go back to all vanilla. I could unselect all these, deselect them all with triangle, and say I'm going to start here with vanilla, and I don't want any of these things. But as you can see, they're not crazy objects. They're just stuff. It's just things. Lawnmowers, harrows, trailers, tractors, harvesters, sprayers, fertilizers, buildings. A few things. There's nothing here that's going to crazy break the game. So all of these things are things that I'm going to switch that off. So all of these things are things that are fine little things for the game. Now then, precision farming. Why have I switched precision farming off? Precision farming is an interesting mod. So precision farming brings a certain amount of modern science to Farm Simulator. Did they have it? I think it only came in with this one. It was a PC mod on FS19, and they converted it over and made it official for FS22. And it really changes how you play the game. So we'll probably have a look at that much later when we've got, pardon me, the hang of the basics and explaining things like soil type, soil condition, fertilizer, bonus yields, etc, etc, etc. Once you get the hang of the basics of the farming, we can then talk about what precision farming does, because you need to analyze the soil, and it will tell you a whole raft of things about soil types and different fertilizing rates that are required for different soil types and all kinds of other complex things. But I wouldn't start with it if I were you. Start with gear, that's fine. I wouldn't start with any gameplay mods like precision farming or anything like that, because you might get very confused if you don't understand the basics. So we'll make sure that precision farming is switched off. And that's all good. All of the other mods are all ticked because it isn't going to make a bit of a difference. And we're going to go in. And this is the starting map that we get. It's a starting map called Elm Creek, which is, I guess, based in somewhere in the Midwest of America. Somewhere, or North Midwest. It's not like a great big, it's got hills, it's got trees, it's got various bits and pieces. It does have seasonal climate, which we'll talk about. But it looks to me like it could be, it could be up towards New England way or somewhere like that. So this is where Elm Creek is. So we'll start out with a character. I'm okay with that character. So here we are. So we're starting off, and we start off on foot, and we start off here. So what I'm going to do is I'll go here first, and we'll have a look at the map. So this is where we start off, and this is our map. And this is the way Farm Simulator maps tend to look. So what we have here is each of these blobs, which is numbered, is a field. So this is field number 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, etc., etc., etc. And they're numbered around the map usually. So we start up at 1 up here. Sorry, I'm flicking through things with my other indicator, which I shouldn't be. And it comes all the way down here to the bottom, and down here at the bottom is field number 82. So there are 82 fields on this map that are previously constructed fields, which we'll talk about. There's obviously grassed areas where fields, additional fields, potentially could be made, but that there aren't fields right now. So there's 82 current fields, and that's all jolly well and good. And some of them are a little bit weird shaped, and some of them are not. Actually, these are not fields. These blobs here. They're here to add something to the map, but they're not actually numbered, so they're not technically a field. I don't know if you can purchase them. We'll go and have a look at that in a minute, because you will see that while it's numbered, it's got crop on it, that one. So I don't know who's cropping it. I don't know how it's being cropped. It's got to be an AI thing off this map. But everything with the number is stuff that's being cropped and being managed and everything else. And you've also got a whole variety of these indicators, which are a variety of bits and pieces that we'll have a look at. This is, I guess, a selling point, Johnson's Farmers Market, where we have this drop arrow. This is somewhere that you can bring things to sell things. This is somewhere where you can get things. So in this case, you can probably get sawdust or something from the sawmill, maybe planks, I don't know. And this is to do with production chains at the sawmill. Animals, you want to buy animals, you need to go to an animal dealer to buy animals. Over here is petrol, diesel. You need, your vehicles do run on diesel, you do have to fill them up. We have here the shop, which is very handy, and we're going to spend a lot of time going backwards and forwards to the shop. We've got more places that you can deposit things, so that's the bowling restaurant. We have over here, I think this is a biogas plant, yeah, over there. And you've got a production chain for an oil mill. And this one's very important. This is lime. Lime is something that you use on fields, so you can do that. And over here was one that they brought in for FS22. This is trains, where you can actually rent a train, and this is where you can offload and load trains. So you might have a whole load of goods that are over on this side of the map, and you don't want to cart them all the way across the map, but you want to get them up here to say, well, probably not there, say to the oil mill or even the biogas plant. So you could, in theory, load a whole load of stuff up onto the train, and you could have the train move this stuff over here, and then you could transport it up there, and it would be a shorter distance, and you don't have to spend time driving around the map, and so on. So these are the maps. So there's a whole variety of places, and each map's different. It's different things, different places, but there's usually a fair amount of the same stuff: feed and grain, places that you can sell goods, some places that you can pick up goods. You need a shop, because that's where you're going to buy all your vehicles, lease all your vehicles, buy all your tools, lease all your tools. There are places where you need to get petrol and so on, which is all very good. And then there are places to buy animals. Not all maps have animals, to be fair, but quite a lot do. And you can buy animals, variety of different kinds of animals, depending on what you want to do and what kind of a farmer you want to be. And this is the kind of map that you have. Regarding the interface on the left side, we'll stay on this for now. So you will see with the crop types. So these are all the different kinds of crops that it is possible for people to grow on this map: wheat, barley, canola, oat, corn, sunflower, soybean, potatoes, sugar beet, sugarcane, cotton, sorghum, grapes, olives, poplar. Now, again, not all maps are the same. There may be some maps that are in very specific latitudes which would not support growing things like sugar beet or sugar cane. So you may find that there are some maps where there are crops that are excluded because they would not realistically grow in that climate. This covers everything. So I don't know if this exists in America, that you could effectively grow grapes, olives, sunflowers, sugarcane, and oats all in the same climate. I think that would probably be quite tricky. There's also grass and oilseed radish as well. Growth-wise, what this shows you is the condition of the fields. So the first one that you'll see at the top there is stubble or tillage. Now, we don't have anything stubble or tillage, and it's probably to do with the time of year we're at, which we'll get to. So we don't have any of that. I mean, in theory, there's a little blob down there. No, it's a different color. So nothing in stubble. And stubble's what you get from taking the tops off wheat, right? Cultivated is a particular readiness that the field has for planting, and that one's been cultivated, so that's fine. That one's been cultivated, so they're ready to be planted, right? So they'll be desperate for planting. Plowed, well, it is exactly what it says it is. It's been plowed. Seed bed means that it's initially been seeded. Growing means it's been seeded and it's been rolled and it's now ready to grow. And there's different colors. There's a spectrum there. The lighter green, like 25, means that it's not long planted and it's just started growing. And the darker green, like 57, means that it's very nearly ready to harvest, which is the orange goldy color. So when it gets to orangey gold, that means those fields are all ready to harvest. So there's product to come off there. That product can be managed. That product can be sold. Purple means it's been harvested, but nothing's been done. Red means remove foliage. So we don't have any of that removed foliage required. And brown means withered, which you don't want. Brown means that you should have harvested a field. You didn't get around to doing it. The crops have now died, and they're now just sitting there on your field being a waste of money. So you don't want to get to brown, because brown means something's gone dreadfully, dreadfully wrong, right? And you've got a withered field. The soil composition layer is very different, because it gives you information on penalties and bonuses to the yield of each field, and we'll get around to that. And look, I don't pretend to know all the percentages and numbers, and I'm sure some of the YouTubers have done that over the years. I know I've seen some of them that have started it, which they basically say, if you just do the absolute bare minimum and plant a field, you know, of a particular size, you know, say it's field 22, which is a very let's call it a very specific size, and say you will get X volume of material. If you weed it, you get 10% more. If you fertilize it once, you might get another, realistically speaking, it's probably like 2 or 3%. If you fertilize it twice, you might get another 2 or 3% on top of the 2 or 3%. If you plow it, you may find that it needs plowed before you can even plant it, so that's probably a necessity. Lime, if you lime it, you get a percentage bonus. If you roll it after putting seeds on it, you get a percentage bonus. Mulching, you can mulch fields, but you can also, you are required to mulch around things like vineyards and so on. And stones also reduce the yield, and I think they also cause some damage to your equipment, increased damage rate. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, but yeah, stones have different color codings, but I've never seen any stones in anything other than yellow. So I guess if you go, you can get different size stones, and we'll talk about that when we look at some of the other information, but I've not seen stones in anything other than yellow. These are all still yellow, it's just there's a different background to the field. So I'm not sure about stones, which is fine. And hotspots is just this thing telling you, like I said, you know, what these icons mean. And if you have equipment lying around, you'll see icons appearing on the map because you're leaving equipment lying around and stuff like that and so on. So yeah, so that's what those means, and we're back to crop types. So that's really the main sort of map UI, and you'll use that a lot. Pardon me. This is for AI workers, and we'll get to that. This is the calendar. So kind of is exactly what it says. This is a calendar. You see it starts at March. So this is a temperate map in a temperate climate. So as indicated by the 4 icons across the top, spring is March, April, and May. Summer is June, July, and August. So we're at the end of summer. Fall or autumn is September, October, November, and winter is December, January, February. So it's not running on calendrical years, it's running on seasonal years. So the seasonal years on this map are, as I have said, on other maps the seasonal years will be different. There's Southern Hemisphere maps where it's all turned around. There's other maps that do work on calendar years, so spring might be January, February, March. It depends how the person who created the map has set it up, and that's the way it is. On the map, on the calendar, you will see that we have all of the things that can be grown. So these are all of the things that can be grown, right down to grass and oilseed radish down at the bottom. And it comes with 2 bars, a green bar and an orange bar. The green bar is the months when you can plant that product, and you cannot plant outside that. So there's no good me going away and purchasing a whole load of stuff to plant wheat and trying to plant wheat, because the game will say you can't plant this now. You can't. It will only let you plant during the appropriate planting time, right? So that's the way that is. So depending on how much of a canny farmer you want to be, you need to look at a couple of things. When do I plant? When am I required to harvest? And what am I going to be doing for the rest of that time? So wheat, for example, you'll see you need to plant it in September and October. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months when your fields are doing nothing but growing wheat. And then you have 2 months to harvest it, prepare it, do all the stuff that you need to do, and then get ready to sow it again if you're going to sow wheat again. So that's really taking up a lot of time, and you're only ever going to get one product off that field. Barley is much the same. Canola is much the same. It has a rather uncomfortable overlap, which means you're going to be, depending on how many fields you've got canola in, you're going to be in a bit of a hurry. We'll talk about timings in a minute. Oats is a bit more interesting. Now, what's not clear looking at this is you plant oats in March. Are you harvesting them in July that year or the next year? Because if you're going to have to wait a whole year and a bit to get round, then that's going to be a nightmare. But I don't believe it works like that. So I believe what happens is oats grow quite quickly. Plant them in March, they're ready in July. So in theory, you could plant oats in March and have a yield by July, and then you have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months with which to do something with your fields. And you could I don't know, have animals on them. Probably not, because you have to create livestock areas and things, but you could have grass down here at the bottom, so you could plant grass, and then hopefully the grass would get long enough towards the end of the year they could harvest it at the end of the year, and then at the beginning of the year you go back to planting oats, right? So that's the kind of consideration. And you can have it see the same with, but for most of them you're probably going to get one crop a year, and you might want to mix and match crops. So you might want to do one field with corn one year, and then decide that next year you're going to do soybeans on that and move on. And there's another crop down here which is called oilseed radish. And oilseed radish is like a fallow crop in that you don't sell it. So, but it rejuvenates your soil. So after a while, your soil is going to get more tired, your yields are going to start dropping, even with fertilizer and so on. So what it's probably a good idea to do, if you're going to be in for the long haul for this kind of game, is that after every couple of years, you probably want to throw on an oilseed radish crop at some point, that fits within your growing window. So what are you planning to grow that year? You might say, right, any time from March to October. So you might harvest, say you harvest sunflowers in November, and you just leave the field alone over winter, get it ready, throw some oilseed radish on. The oilseed radish is harvested by the middle of the, well, not harvested, but tilled back into the ground by the middle of the year. And then by the end of the year, you might decide you're going to grow cotton, which is in February. So, or whatever. Or you might just decide to grow another round of grass and deal with that and then restart again. So there's a whole load of different things that you need to consider, but this calendar is very important in terms of what you need to plant and when you need to harvest, and also then what you're going to be doing about money, because this game is a lot about shelling out in advance. You need to buy the land, work the land, plant the land, do everything you need to do, harvest the material, and then probably, if you're really serious about making money, wait and then sell the material. So you're probably not realizing the fruits of your efforts until at least a year after you've harvested, right? In some cases, because you might harvest in July or August, and you might not get really good prices until, April the next year or something. So you could be waiting a long time to get money back, and we'll have a look at that very, very shortly. The weather situation is the weather situation, tells you what's coming, kind of weather you're looking at. I've not found it too critical to my decision making, but I could be wrong. Certainly for the stuff that I've been doing, the weather's not been important. The seasons have, but certainly not the weather. Prices. Now the prices are interesting. So the prices fluctuate seasonally. So it's a dynamic pricing market in Farm Simulator, which is a good thing. And it shows me here if I have any in storage, which I don't, because we just started the game. But if I did, it would show me the leaders that I have. And it shows you the pricing over here. Now, the only thing I'm not going to say for sure here is what the pricing is. I think it's pricing per 1,000 liters, because it doesn't actually say. It gives you a price range, and it tells you a whole bunch of stuff, but it doesn't actually tell me. I don't think it's price per liter. I don't think you get 495. I think it's price per 1,000 liters. So the way it works is the red arrow tells you that the prices have been falling at Feed and Grain South and have been rising at Goldcrest Valley. And every now and again as well, you get something called great demand. I don't think there's any indicators on here for great demand. I think there used to be. There was like a double arrow kind of a thing that would come up. And it may be that there's no great demand at the minute. And what great demand means is you're getting an unusually high price for the kind of stuff that you're going to be selling. So if we go and have a look here, we'll talk about the crops. So crops wise, we've got these sort of like fairly standard prices, some rising, some falling, and you'll generally see that. You'll generally see there's a range of price at the different places. If you suddenly spend all of your time driving backwards and forwards with barley to Goldcrest Valley, that price is going to eventually start dropping because they have no more demand. Once they're full, they don't need it, so their price is going. It isn't going to. So that's what I mean by dynamic. If you fill up Goldcrest Valley, that price is going to start dropping. What this seasonal fluctuations is showing you is saying to you the best price you're likely to get for barley is going to be in January. So there's a range there, up as high as $681. And then in February, that plummets back down, but it's going to keep falling until August, when it's at its absolute cheapest. And if you go back and have a look, we were looking at barley. If you go back to barley and you have a look at August, hey, look, it's the month. It's the month immediately after the last month for harvest. So the expectation is that the market will be in glut of barley in August, because in July and August, people will have harvested all their barley and will be wanting to sell it. So if you want to sell it at a good price, you want to hang on to it till January. So you've got to hang on to it for another 6 months. So if you harvested in early in July, 7 months to try and get the best price for your barley. So this is what I mean about there's a timed lag between what you're paying out and what you're getting. So that, I mean, and they all follow that rule, obviously, and you'll see how they fluctuate around. And it's like, yes, okay, fair enough. So you've got, depending on the best time to harvest, you've got all these ranges. You've got a max price and a minimum price. So even with olives, in the worst possible situation, you're going to get 814 per 1,000 liters, for example. You know, and you've got some weird stuff here happening with stuff like sunflower, but most of it is following this kind of trend, right, where you've got all this stuff going on. Where that changes, or might change a little bit, is when you get down to these production things, there's things that are a bit different. You got eggs. It's a little bit upsy-downsy. It's not quite so clear what's happening with eggs, because eggs is the kind of thing that isn't dependent on the seasons. You know, you are able to harvest eggs all year round. So what happens in May, in June? That's spring, beginning of summer. I don't know. Why would people want more eggs? November? I can see November. Perhaps big holiday. Especially this American map. November, you're talking about big holiday season in November. Could be. Wool? Don't know. Low demand in summer, because people don't want wool for clothing. They don't want wool kind of clothing, but they want it in winter and spring. Don't know why it would drop in January, for example. Milk, high in summer because cold milk is nice to drink. I don't know. Total mixed ration is to do with cows. Very high in August, very low in September. Pass on that one. Wood chips, I guess, for the fire season. Silage, don't know, don't get it. Probably depends on grass season. Wood, again, don't know. Grass for silage, grass, hay and straw. Talk about the differences between grass, hay and straw, because there's a price difference. Grass is maximum 89. Hay requires a little bit more effort. Hay, being dried grass, is 111. Straw is different. Straw is stubble from wheat. You can get straw after you harvest some crop types. Wheat, barley, can't remember the other one, sorry, off the top of my head, but we can have a look at that. Diesel doesn't matter. Road salt has no fluctuations. Flour has a fluctuation. We're now getting into production. So this is now, obviously, you're not just farming at this point. You are doing stuff. So you're taking your wheat and you're processing it, and then you're getting your wheat back from your production plant as flour, and then you're then selling the flour. So you're not selling the wheat, you're buying a production plant, you take the wheat to the production plant and you make flour, right? You got it. So on. Same with, bread, etc. Cake, who doesn't mind cake? 6,474. But that's for like a pallet of cake. And how long it takes you to get a pallet of cake and so on, don't know, etc. Look at production stuff. But obviously, around Christmas, January time, that kind of thing. Butter, cheese, fabrics, clothes, sugar, honey, cereal, sunflower oil, Olive oil 5,270 is pretty good. Think is that no? The highest one is what did I find? Pretty sure I felt like I thought was that it? 5,000. Olive oil. Hello. Clothing. 18,000. But you're going to have a lot of stages to go through. Fabric is quite high as well. Cake is quite high. So you got a lot of production stuff. Vehicles you own, your finances, the animals you own, contracts, production chains, general game stats, some of the game settings, various other bits and pieces. Contracts is very interesting, and we'll just touch on this briefly because we're about to run out of time for this first one. These are exactly what you think they are. These are people offering the ability for you to make money, and you'll see down there at the bottom it says you can accept the contract or you can borrow the items. So if you don't have anything and I don't have anything, I can choose to borrow the items for a reward reduced by $1,571, and he'll supply me all the gear that I need, and I can do the job and I can pay the $1,500, and if I did it all myself I'd get $26,028 less the $1,571, and I'd walk away with my $24,000, 600 and something bucks. And but field 71's a big field. I know it's a big field. It would take a while. Field 74, plowing, fairly straightforward. Obviously you don't get paid as much. Spraying for $336, I would not even waste my time with that. That's not worth the money. But we'll talk about selection of contracts later. Yeah, so that's essentially the kind of the GUI when you get stuck into the game. And like I said, it's been a bit of a length of time of this one, which is inevitable. And I did say it would be a little bit dry. We're just looking at the game per se. So what I'm going to do is this will be the first one. The second one will have a little bit more of a look at the game settings, because there's some important things in the game settings and the general settings that I want to have a look at. And then we'll run through this kind of help book, which gives you an understanding of some of the basic bits and pieces. And once we've gotten through the game settings, the general settings, and the help book, we'll then be able to start looking at the game proper. So I do appreciate that it does seem like a lengthy process and quite dry to start with. I do think for this particular type of game it's very important that you understand everything before you get started, because you can waste so much time and money if you don't know what you're doing. You just jump straight in, you will blow time, you will blow money, and you don't get it back because there's so many months to wait. You have to wait. If you've mucked it up, you've mucked it up for the year, and there's no going back. You have to persevere with your cock up until the new year when you can fix it. And with contracts and things, you can make muck-ups, buying land and so on. So we'll have a look at that in the next one. So I appreciate your perseverance. If you have any comments or tips and tricks your own, anything you want me to cover or look into in more detail, let me know. I do promise we will get around to doing it. It just does take a little bit of time to understand it. It's a very big game with a lot going on, but it is kind of addictive once you get stuck into it. So do drop a like, do subscribe to the channel, do click the bell notification so you know when the next one is coming out, which hopefully should be relatively soon. But I am busy over the next few days, so probably not going to get around to doing another one for a little while. And yeah, and we'll carry on and we'll get stuck in, and next time I promise that I will try and get us into the actual map, and you can have a look around, because the maps are lovely. They are lovely. They are very lovely maps, lovely assets, lovely crisp things to look at. They're yeah, there's so much thought and attention to detail that has gone into a lot of these assets, It's yeah, it's just it is a fabulous looking game. Once you get down to the nitty gritty of it, it is a fabulous looking game. Never mind the polygons on the plants. Look at the rusty old bats and things like that. Basketball, some water and everything. It's yeah, it looks good. It's a good looking game, and it's a heck of a game to play. I'll see you soon. Ta for now.
PlayStation